Today, shocking news has rocked the world of Little People, Big World. If you thought the Rolloff family drama ended with Matt and Amy's divorce or the farm disputes, think again. Someone in Amy's family has filed a secret lawsuit, and it just came to light. This lawsuit forced Amy to sell her cherished business, Amy's Little Kitchen. On top of that, false accusations were made against her husband, Chris Merrick, landing him in jail. This legal battle is plunging Amy into severe financial crisis. The questions are many. Who in her family would plan such a sinister attack to destroy Amy and Chris? What hidden resentment caused this devastating lawsuit, forcing Amy to sell her beloved business? What false accusations could put Chris behind bars? And what was the ultimate goal? To leave Amy not just broke, but broken. This is not a reality show plot. This is a story of real-life conspiracy, family betrayal, and one woman's fight for survival. After her divorce from Matt Rolloff in 2016, Amy began a new chapter. She said, "It's scary starting over, but it's also exciting. I get to decide what my life looks like now." And she did. She found love with Chris Merrick, a real estate broker, and built a life full of passion. She authored a successful memoir and cookbook. But her greatest achievement was Amy's Little Kitchen. What started as family recipes grew into a thriving business, featured in specialty stores across the Pacific Northwest, sold online, and became a farmer's market favorite. It was more than a brand. It was Amy's identity, her financial independence, and her legacy. Amy's Little Kitchen had all the signs of a brand ready for national growth. A charismatic founder with a built-in audience, a high-quality product in a growing market, and a compelling story. Experts estimated its value between $2 and $3 million, with potential for more. But success can cast shadows. Jealousy began to simmer. The Rolloff family dynamics were always complex and public. Divorce, farm disputes, disagreements about the future, they all left fractures. While the public saw a family moving forward, insiders saw lingering resentment. One family member watched Amy's success not with pride, but with growing bitterness. The first blow came quietly. A process server delivered a sealed envelope to Amy's home on a Tuesday morning. It was a civil lawsuit filed in private court. Details were hidden under a confidentiality clause. The plaintiff's name was redacted, called only Party A. But the defendant was clear: Amy Rolloff, and the target was Amy's Little Kitchen. Filing a confidential civil lawsuit against a private business is unusual. It is often used to apply maximum pressure, while keeping things secret. The allegations were shocking. Party A claimed Amy had used a family recipe without permission, and that all profits belonged to the Rolloff family. They demanded an accounting of all profits, and that they be placed in a trust. They also wanted Amy to stop operations and sell the business to pay the alleged debt. Amy was blindsided. She called the claims absurd and malicious, saying the recipes were hers, perfected over 40 years of cooking. There was no family recipe book or secret ingredient from the Rolloffs. Her friend Sarah said Amy was devastated and furious, asking, "How could someone in my own family do this? They've eaten my food their entire lives. They know it's mine." It wasn't really about a recipe. It was a personal attack disguised as legal action. The legal fees mounted quickly. Even a baseless lawsuit is expensive. Amy had to hire a top intellectual property law firm. Money she had planned to use for growth and marketing now went to legal defense. The strategy was clear: litigation by attrition. Even without a strong case, the goal was to exhaust Amy financially and force her to settle. Amy's Little Kitchen, once thriving, started losing money. Production slowed. Marketing stopped. The dream was being strangled by legal paperwork. Amy and Chris tightened their belts, but the financial drain was relentless. Then the worst happened. Just as Amy was preparing for a crucial deposition, Chris Merrick was arrested on charges of financial fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy to commit wire fraud. Party A went to criminal authorities, claiming new evidence that Chris had conspired with Amy to hide assets and defraud investors. They alleged Chris had created shell companies to launder profits, hiding the true value of the business to make the civil claims seem frivolous. This changed everything. A civil dispute became a criminal case. The stakes were no longer money, they were freedom. Chris was denied bail, deemed a flight risk. For 3 days, Amy's husband sat in jail. It broke her. She was trying to manage the business, the lawsuit, and now this. She said, "They've taken him. They put my innocent husband in a cage." She knew it was connected, the same person trying to destroy them completely. Amy faced a two-front war, a civil suit draining her financially and a criminal defense for Chris costing even more. The media frenzy was relentless. Sponsors pulled back, stores dropped her products. Her business was dead in the water. Amy was isolated, terrified, and running out of options. Her life's work was collapsing, and the love of her life faced years in prison, all because of a lawsuit from an anonymous family member. Discovering the identity of Party A became a matter of survival. With Chris still fighting criminal charges and legal bills reaching tens of thousands a month, Amy faced impossible choices. Party A filed a motion for summary judgment, claiming Chris's criminal case proved their civil claims and demanding Amy immediately sell Amy's little kitchen to pay the alleged debt. It was a vicious cycle, a relentless attack threatening to destroy Amy and Chris entirely. Charges, however baseless, gave weight to the civil suit, and the civil suit helped justify the criminal investigation in the eyes of the public and a lazy prosecutor. It became a self-reinforcing cycle of destruction. Amy's lawyers told her she could fight it. They believed they could win, but a trial would take years and cost hundreds of thousands of dollars she no longer had. Meanwhile, Chris's bail was set at a prohibitively high amount after his initial denial. Amy needed cash. The unthinkable became inevitable. To save her husband, she had to sacrifice her dream. In a heartbreaking settlement, Amy agreed to sell Amy's little kitchen. The business she built from scratch, her pride and joy, was sold to a private equity firm for a fraction of its true value. The proceeds were immediately frozen by the court pending the outcome of the cases. It was a fire sale, a tragedy. The brand was damaged by the scandal, but the underlying business, the recipes, customer list, and distribution deals, was still valuable. She had to sell under the worst circumstances. The sale covered the initial mountain of legal debt, but it was gone. Her main source of income was gone. She got Chris out on bail, but he was a shell of his former self. The once vibrant, confident man was subdued, haunted by the charges and financial ruin he felt he had brought upon Amy. The family had gone silent. Public statements were crafted by PR teams offering thoughts and prayers and hope for a quick resolution, but there was no support, no condemnation of the mysterious plaintiff. The silence was deafening. To the outside world, it seemed like the family was closing ranks. But was it to protect one of their own, or were they also caught in this plot? Amy was now financially crippled, emotionally shattered, and staring into the abyss. The plaintiff had won. The business was gone, but the criminal case against Chris continued. The goalposts had shifted. What seemed like financial ruin now seemed like total annihilation, to send an innocent man to prison and leave Amy with nothing and no one. Who could harbor such venom? Who would not be satisfied with just taking a business, but also want to see a man imprisoned? The list of suspects was small, and the motives were becoming clearer. Investigators looked at means, motive, and opportunity. The means was a lawsuit and a false criminal accusation. The opportunity came from intimate knowledge of the family, its dynamics, and finances, pointing to someone in the inner circle. The motive was the key. They examined every Rolloff family member. Matt Rolloff, Amy's ex-husband, was an obvious suspect. Their relationship was famously contentious. As a shrewd businessman, did he see Amy's little kitchen as a competitor to Rolloff Farms? Did he resent her profiting from a Rolloff family identity post-divorce? Sources close to Matt deny this. A public scandal damaging the Rolloff name would also hurt Rolloff Farms. Matt reportedly said to a friend, "This is bad for all of us." Next, Jeremy and Audrey Rolloff. They have a thriving brand based on faith, family, and traditional values. Did they disapprove of Amy's second marriage or public persona? Perhaps they felt competitive in the family influencer space? The motive seems weak. A scandal of this size would hurt their wholesome brand. Zach and Tori Rolloff had strained relations with Matt over failed farm negotiations. Some speculated they might view Amy's little kitchen as an alternative source of family income. But they have a close relationship with Amy. Tori has often expressed admiration for her. It seems highly unlikely. Jacob and Isabel Rolloff have distanced themselves from the reality TV spotlight and have their own creative pursuits. Jacob had reconciled with the family in recent years. The lawsuit's complex financial nature seems beyond their interests. Molly Rolloff is almost completely private, with no social media presence or connection to family businesses. She seems to have no motive. So, who is left? Public faces seemed unlikely. Private ones unmotivated. The investigation had hit a wall until a clue from the past emerged. During discovery, Chris's criminal lawyers subpoenaed communications between the plaintiff and the district attorney's office. Among thousands of emails, they found one peculiar message from the plaintiff's civil attorney to a deputy DA. It referenced a side agreement contingent on the criminal forfeiture of business assets. This was a bombshell. Forfeiture is a legal process where the state can seize a business if it was built using illegally obtained funds or through fraud. The email suggested the plaintiff didn't just want money, they wanted the business gone. They wanted to retroactively prove it was never legitimately Amy's. This went beyond greed. It was about legacy, about rewriting history. The new evidence revealed a deeply personal motive. Someone who felt their own legacy was threatened by Amy's success, someone who believed they were the true heir to the Rolloff story. The person implicated was Karen Chandler. For years, she was Matt's right-hand woman on the farm, his confidant during the divorce, and now his fiancée. She was deeply involved in Rolloff Farms operations. Watching Amy build a successful independent brand apart from Matt, and the farm may have chafed. More recently, Amy shared updates with fans, showing her bond with Chris by teaching him a surprising new skill. She also admitted the emotional pain she still feels over Matt's relationship with Karen. While fans celebrated her relationship update, many criticized Chris and debated his role in Amy's life. Despite the turmoil, Amy and Chris remain beloved by little people, big world fans, even as some viewers complain about the show dragging on. Even as the legal storm raged on, Amy refused to let despair define her. Every day was a test of endurance. She and Chris spent hours reviewing documents, consulting with lawyers, and strategizing their next move. The weight of the past months pressed down on them, but they were determined not to let Party A's attacks destroy their future entirely. Every small victory, a successful motion, a favorable ruling, or a court deadline met, was celebrated quietly, a reminder that the fight wasn't over. Amy began to focus on rebuilding her sense of purpose. She started sharing her cooking and baking skills with close friends and family, teaching Chris new techniques, and even hosting small private workshops. These activities weren't about business. They were about reclaiming joy and control in a life that had been upended. Every recipe recreated, every dish perfected, was an act of defiance against the person who had tried to erase her accomplishments. Chris, despite the trauma of his arrest and the ongoing criminal case, found strength in supporting Amy. He became her anchor, helping her navigate financial decisions, court appearances, and the emotional toll of betrayal. Friends and fans noted the renewed closeness of the couple. While their world had been shaken to its core, the adversity only strengthened their bond. The public continued to watch the saga unfold. Fans debated theories online, speculating about Party A's identity and motives. Some expressed outrage on Amy's behalf, sharing messages of support and encouragement. Others criticized Chris or questioned their choices. Amy learned to filter the noise, focusing on what mattered most: her marriage, her personal integrity, and the careful steps she could take to protect what remained. Legal teams on both sides continued to battle. The civil suit, though technically resolved with the sale of the business, had lingering effects. Party A's coordination with prosecutors and the broader legal strategy ensured that Amy and Chris remained under intense scrutiny. It was a constant reminder of how far some people would go to control a narrative and assert power. Amy had to remain vigilant, documenting every interaction, recording every detail, and staying prepared for any new maneuver. Despite the pressure, Amy refused to be a victim. She began to imagine a future where she could rebuild, not necessarily Amy's little kitchen as it once was, but a new project, a new expression of her creativity and independence. She knew it would take patience and resilience, but she also knew she had the support of those who truly cared for her and Chris. Throughout this ordeal, Amy's relationship with Chris deepened. The challenges they faced together forced them to communicate more honestly, trust more fully, and lean on each other in ways that few couples ever experience. Every cooking session, every conversation about strategy, every quiet moment at home became a building block in the foundation of their renewed life. While the betrayal from someone close in the Rolloff family had caused immense pain, Amy and Chris learned a harsh but valuable lesson: the importance of boundaries, the strength of personal resolve, and the power of unity in the face of adversity. Even with the business gone, the financial strain, and the looming criminal case, their partnership endured. Amy realized that Party A's ultimate goal, total destruction, might never succeed if she refused to let fear dictate her actions. While the road ahead remained uncertain, Amy and Chris had reclaimed a critical piece of their lives: hope, resilience, and each other. They were no longer just surviving. They were quietly plotting the path to rebuild, to thrive again, and to prove that no amount of betrayal or malicious intent could erase their legacy entirely. As the weeks passed, Amy and Chris began to reclaim small pieces of normal life. Mornings started with quiet coffee on the porch, watching the sun rise over the Oregon hills, moments they had never appreciated before. The intensity of legal battles faded slightly in those hours, replaced by conversation, laughter, and the simple comfort of being together. It wasn't the life they had imagined when they first met, but it was theirs, and they were determined to protect it. Amy also began to focus on her health and mental well-being. She started attending yoga sessions, taking long walks with friends, and meditating daily. These routines became lifelines, helping her manage anxiety and the constant stress of uncertainty. Chris joined her, and together they explored the calm that came from shared purpose and mutual support. In these moments, they rediscovered the love that had drawn them together in the first place, a love not defined by public appearances, social media, or business success, but by trust, empathy, and loyalty. Social media, once a source of scrutiny, became a tool of empowerment. Amy began sharing glimpses of her daily life, not for fame or validation, but to remind herself and others that life could continue even after heartbreak and betrayal. Her followers responded with overwhelming support, offering encouragement, advice, and stories of personal resilience. Amy read the messages quietly, letting them strengthen her resolve without letting the noise dictate her emotions or actions. Meanwhile, Chris focused on rebuilding his professional life. The fallout from his arrest and the legal entanglements with Party A had temporarily disrupted his career, but he refused to let that define him. He began taking smaller real estate projects, carefully managing his time and energy so that he could also support Amy and the children. Every successful deal became a step forward, a demonstration that the storm had not destroyed his ability to provide and protect. Amy and Chris also prioritized their relationships with family and close friends. The Rolloff family, despite the past drama and betrayals, continued to offer quiet support, checking in, providing meals, and helping create a safe, stable environment. Those bonds became essential, reminding them that even in the most chaotic times, loyalty and love remained possible. Legal battles continued in the background. Court dates, filings, and motions were constant reminders that Party A had not yet relented. Amy kept detailed records of all interactions and decisions, creating a meticulous archive to protect herself and Chris from further manipulation. Her discipline and attention to detail impressed even her attorneys, who noted that her proactive approach had already prevented several potential setbacks. Amidst this turmoil, Amy and Chris began discussing long-term goals. They talked about moving to a home that felt completely their own, a place where past drama could not intrude. They dreamed of spaces for creativity, quiet gardens, and rooms where family could gather without fear or scrutiny. Planning for the future became both a distraction and a motivation, a way to reclaim hope and direct energy towards something positive rather than dwelling solely on the past. Even as the shadow of betrayal lingered, Amy and Chris found strength in routine, communication, and the little victories each day brought. They had been tested in ways few couples ever experience, but each challenge strengthened their bond rather than weakening it. Their story, once defined by heartbreak and scandal, was slowly transforming into one of resilience, recovery, and quiet triumph. Amy realized something crucial. Life would never return exactly to the way it was, and that was okay. The lessons of trust, vigilance, and self-reliance were invaluable, and the future, though uncertain, was theirs to shape. Together, Amy and Chris were no longer just surviving the aftermath of betrayal. They were reclaiming their lives.